What if a seemingly ordinary late-night shift held the key to a life-altering moment? For Hannah, a 25-year-old waitress at Maplewood Grill, the night usually unfolded like clockwork. Familiar faces, hearty meals, and the comforting rhythm of routine. But tonight, beneath the neon glow and amidst the laughter, a twist of fate was lurking, ready to disrupt her carefully balanced world and plunge her into an unexpected adventure. Most nights followed a predictable pattern, serving steaming bowls of chili, refilling coffee cups, and smiling through endless small talk. It wasn't glamorous, but Hannah had grown to appreciate the steady rhythm. Tonight, however, the usual pattern would be shattered in ways she could never have anticipated. It started about 30 minutes before closing time. Hannah was clearing off a table near the window when the bell above the door jingled. Instinctively, she glanced up, expecting to see one of the regulars or maybe a couple grabbing a late-night bite. Instead, she froze. A man shuffled into the restaurant, his shoulders hunched and his clothes tattered. He wore an oversized trench coat that looked like it hadn't seen a washing machine in decades. A ratty knit beanie was pulled low over his forehead, and his beard was scruffy and unkempt. His shoes, if they could be called that, were held together with duct tape. The man carried an air of weariness, as if the world had long forgotten him. But something about him felt off. His movements were deliberate, his posture a little too upright for someone so down on their luck. Hannah couldn't put her finger on it, but the more she looked at him, the more he seemed familiar. The regulars at the grill noticed him too. The hum of conversation quieted as the man shuffled to a booth in the corner, the kind reserved for patrons who liked their privacy. A few whispers rippled through the room, some curious, others judgmental. Hannah hesitated for a moment before grabbing her notepad and walking over to the man's table. She forced a warm smile, though her nerves buzzed beneath the surface. "Good evening," she said gently. "Can I get you something to drink?" The man looked up, and Hannah caught a glimpse of piercing blue eyes beneath the brim of his beanie. His face, though scruffy and worn, held a certain intensity that made her pause. "Water, please," he said, his voice low and gravelly, though there was a distinct cadence to his speech. "And if you've got soup, I'll take that too." Hannah nodded, jotting down the order. "Coming right up." As she turned to head back to the counter, she could feel the weight of the regulars' stares. A few of them muttered amongst themselves, their voices just loud enough for her to catch the snippets. "Must be another homeless guy looking for a handout," one man said, shaking his head. "Shouldn't let him sit here," another chimed in. "Makes the place look bad." Hannah bit her lip, choosing to ignore their remarks. It wasn't the first time someone in need had wandered into the grill, and she prided herself on treating everyone with kindness. Still, the tension in the room made her stomach twist. She returned to the man's table a few minutes later, setting down a steaming bowl of tomato soup and a glass of water. "Here you go," she said, her smile more genuine this time. "If you need anything else, just let me know." The man nodded, murmuring a quiet thank you, before picking up his spoon. He ate slowly, his eyes flickering around the room as if taking in every detail. As the minutes passed, the other patrons grew restless. Some shot pointed glances at Hannah, silently urging her to do something about the man. Others whispered openly, their voices carrying across the room. Finally, one of the regulars, a middle-aged woman named Gloria, who fancied herself the unofficial mayor of Maplewood, stood up and marched over to the man's booth. "Excuse me," Gloria said, her hands on her hips. "I couldn't help but notice you sitting here. Are you planning to pay for that meal?" The man looked up from his soup, his expression calm but unreadable. "I don't carry much money," he admitted, his voice steady. Gloria huffed, her disapproval radiating off her like heat from an oven. "Well, this isn't a charity, you know. We all have to pay for what we eat." Hannah's heart sank. She wanted to intervene, but Gloria wasn't someone you interrupted lightly. The older woman had a way of making you feel like a misbehaving child with just a glance. Before she could say anything, the man leaned back in his seat, his eyes meeting Gloria's with a calm yet firm gaze. "I understand," he said, "but I believe everyone deserves a little kindness, don't you?" Gloria scoffed, shaking her head. "Kindness doesn't pay the bills, mister." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Hannah couldn't take it anymore. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "That's enough, Gloria," she said, her tone firm. "He's not hurting anyone. If he can't pay, I'll cover it." Gloria turned to Hannah, her eyebrows raised in disbelief. You'll cover it? You don't even know him. I don't need to know him, Hannah shot back. Everyone deserves a hot meal, especially on a cold night like this. The man watched the exchange quietly, his expression unreadable. For a moment it seemed like he might say something, but he simply returned to his soup as if he were invisible again. Gloria huffed but didn't press the issue further. She returned to her table, muttering under her breath, and the other patrons slowly resumed their conversations. When the man finished his meal, he stood up and approached the counter where Hannah was wiping down trays. Thank you, he said, his voice soft but sincere, for the soup and for what you said back there. Hannah smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. It's nothing. Just doing what I'd hoped someone would do for me. The man nodded, his lips curling into a faint smile. Not many people would. And with that, he turned and left the grill, the bell above the door jingling in his wake. Later that night, as Hannah was cleaning up, her boss, Mr. Blake, called her into the office. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead as he gestured for her to sit down. Hannah, he began, his tone serious, I've been hearing complaints from some of the regulars about what happened tonight. Hannah's heart sank. I was just trying to help. I know, Mr. Blake interrupted, raising a hand, and I respect that, but this is a business. Our regulars are the ones who keep us afloat. If they're unhappy, he trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Hannah swallowed hard, her throat tight. So what are you saying? I'm saying, I think it's best if we part ways, Mr. Blake said, his voice heavy with regret. I'll pay you through the week, but after that, the words hit her like a punch to the gut. The grill had been her sanctuary, a place of stability in her chaotic life. Now she was being cast out, all because she chose to show a little compassion. Hannah left the office that night feeling defeated, the weight of the evening pressing down on her like a heavy blanket. Little did she know, the man she had defended wasn't just some drifter. He had been watching and testing, and her kindness would soon bring her a life-changing surprise. The next morning, Hannah woke up feeling like she had a weight on her chest. Losing her job at Maplewood Grill wasn't just a blow to her pride, it was a practical problem. Rent was due soon, her tuition payments weren't far behind, and she had no backup plan. As she sat at her tiny kitchen table with a lukewarm cup of coffee, her phone buzzed on the counter. Glancing at the screen, she saw an unknown number. With a sigh, she answered, bracing herself for a scam call or collection agency. Hello? Hi, is this Hannah? A calm, authoritative voice came through the line. Yes, who's calling? This is Donald Trump. Hannah froze, her mind racing. She almost hung up, thinking it had to be a prank. Excuse me? I know this might sound strange, the voice continued, but I was the man you served at Maplewood Grill last night. Her heart skipped a beat. Wait, that was you? Yes, he replied, his tone light but serious. It was part of a little test I've been running. I wanted to see how people treat someone they perceive as down and out. And you passed with flying colors. Hannah blinked, struggling to process what she was hearing. You're telling me you came into the grill dressed like that on purpose? To test me? Exactly, Trump said. You see, I've been working on a new initiative to highlight integrity and compassion in everyday Americans. I wanted to find someone who exemplifies those qualities, and you, Hannah, stood out. You stood up for a stranger, even when it cost you personally. That's rare, and it's something I respect deeply. Hannah's mind reeled. The man she'd defended, the reason she'd lost her job, was one of the most recognizable figures in the world. I don't know what to say. Well, Trump said, I'd like to offer you a job, something more meaningful than waiting tables. I've got a foundation that works on projects for struggling communities, and I think you'd be a perfect fit. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. A job? You're serious? Completely, Trump replied. You've shown you have the kind of character we need. My team will send over the details, but I wanted to personally tell you how impressed I was. For a moment, Hannah couldn't speak. Finally, she managed, Thank you. I don't even know what to say, but thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said with a chuckle. There's a lot of work to be done, but I'll see you soon. The call ended, leaving Hannah staring at her phone in stunned silence. She half wondered if she was dreaming, but when an email from Trump's team landed in her inbox moments later, the reality of the situation set in. 2 weeks later, Hannah found herself sitting in the sleek conference room of a towering building in New York City. She wore the best outfit she could afford, simple but professional, and tried to mask her nervousness as she waited. The door opened, and in walked Donald Trump, now dressed in a sharp navy suit with his signature red tie. His demeanor was warm, yet commanding, and he greeted her with a firm handshake. "Hannah," he said with a smile, "it's good to see you." "It's good to see you too," she replied, still a little overwhelmed by the surrealness of it all. Trump gestured for her to sit as he took a seat across from her. "I won't take up too much of your time, but I want you to know why you're here. You see, I've been meeting people across the country, people like you who step up when it matters most. This foundation isn't just about writing checks. It's about building something real. And I need people with heart, people who understand what it means to help others. That's why I want you on board." Hannah nodded, her confidence growing. "What exactly would I be doing?" "You'll be working on community outreach," he explained, "helping coordinate programs for underserved areas, managing resources, and making sure the people we're helping have a voice in the process. It's a lot of responsibility, but I believe you're more than capable." Hannah's chest swelled with a mix of pride and gratitude. "I'd love to be a part of that," she said sincerely. "Good," Trump said with a nod. "We'll get you started right away." Over the next few months, Hannah's life transformed in ways she never imagined. She traveled to cities across the country, meeting people from all walks of life and helping launch programs that provided food, education, and job training to struggling communities. The work was challenging but fulfilling, and for the first time in her life, Hannah felt like she was truly making a difference. Back in her hometown, the news of her new job spread quickly. The regulars at Maplewood Grill couldn't believe it when they saw her on the local news, standing next to Donald Trump at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new community center. Even Gloria, who had been so judgmental that night, looked sheepish when she saw Hannah's photo in the paper. One evening, Hannah returned to Maplewood Grill for the first time since she'd been fired. She sat at the counter, smiling, as the waitress poured her a cup of coffee. Mr. Blake emerged from the kitchen, his eyes widening when he saw her. "Hannah," he said, wiping his hands on his apron, "it's good to see you." "It's good to be back," she replied, her tone warm but firm. "I heard about everything you've been doing," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "I just want you to know, I'm sorry for how things ended here. You deserve better." Hannah smiled, setting down her coffee cup. "It's okay, Mr. Blake. Everything worked out the way it was supposed to." As she left the grill that night, she couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. Her journey had been unexpected and at times difficult, but it had led her to a place where she could truly make a difference. And as for Donald Trump, he continued his initiative to find unsung heroes across the nation, showing the world that even in the smallest acts of kindness, greatness could be found.